Hello, it's Friday. It's the end of the week, and I feel nice. Though to be fair, it is technically still school break, and my new semester doesn't officially start in October. But I've already started going to the school, to the lab, just to do some stuff. Um, but and therefore I wouldn't really say that the weekend has a really strong impact on my life nowadays compared to when I was working, when I was working a full time job, or when I was actually going to regular classes Monday to Friday. But still, weekends are always something to cherish, and with this feeling of um, gratefulness, I also feel good enough to make a random rambling video. Um, and particularly for today, Friday, I found that my reading today was tip top amazing because I was reading with great focus. And there were certain observations I found regarding my reading in general, but also regarding the books that I read today. So the books that I read today, okay, one of those books was The Leopard by Giuseppe Tomasi di Lampedusa. I'm still currently reading this book. I think I am roughly about 30% into this book. If you have really kept track on my reading progress, which I'm sure you're not doing, I don't think it makes sense for you to do that. But if you do, you might have noticed that I actually started reading this book like more than 1 month ago while I was still in Kuching. Because I already had the interest in this book at the time. But at that time, I was actually reading this book really slowly, and the reason was because I was not familiar with a lot of the things inside this book. I was not familiar with the background. I was not familiar with Italian history, especially in the 19th century and what was going on. I was not familiar very much with the geography, where this book is set, which is in Sicily. And so a lot of the details, especially in the first chapter of this book, escaped me. And so it was a bit of a struggle for me to read this book at the time. And I would say the headspace that I was in at that period of my reading of this book was also kind of different. The environment was different. And contrast that with where I am right now. I would say my head, the headspace I'm in right now is kind of different as well. It's not drastically different, but it's a little bit different, which helps with the focus. But at the same time, I was also able to have clear up a lot of the fuzziness that I had regarding the background information related to this novel. So just very briefly, The Leopard is kind of about how the head of a aristocratic family who has been ruling over Sicily, how this particular prince, his name is Don Fabrizio, is dealing with the fact that soon enough his family is no longer going to rule over Sicily, because in the 19th century, in the middle of the 19th century, the unification of Italy is beginning to happen, which means that this region of Sicily, which has always been kind of under his family's rule. He's not going to be like the ruler or the person to govern that place anymore. And how is he going to kind of deal with this change, this imminent change? How is he going to what is he going to do, right? So it is a historical fiction, and I have become a little bit more familiar with the history behind this book. And by the time I cleared that up, I found that these few days, not just today actually, but these few days, my reading of this book has been picking up steam. Like, I have been really enthusiastic about reading this book. I mean, as enthusiastic as I could be when it comes to reading, of course, but I have been feeling that fire, you know? And one thing I notice, you know, because weekdays I usually commute back and forth between my house and also the university, and so I would take the bus and I would take the train. I find that I read this book the best when I'm on the train, when it's cold and air conditioned in the train, and I could focus the best in that environment. And I'm not sure. I think it might have something to do with the fact that fairly significant portion, well, I wouldn't say very significant, somewhat significant portion of this book is written in this kind of descriptive and sensual way. In fact, I would definitely use the word sensual to describe this book and the prose. And the sensual part usually are used to describe things such as the feelings of the characters, but also stuff like the setting, the weather of the scene, and also stuff like food. And I find that it is the most effective reading those parts when I'm at a air-conditioned space, such as on the train. So basically that's kind of been going on with this book. I'm still kind of reading this book slowly, but now the slowness arose from a totally different place. It is not from the fact that it was difficult to penetrate, but it's because it for me, it really requires, the reading of the book really requires me to slow down, to immerse myself in the words of this, of the prose. So this is what I'm currently doing right now. One of the things I'm currently reading. I'm also reading another historical fiction, which I've probably mentioned in one of my previous videos. This is The Storm We Made by Vanessa Chan. So this book was actually lent to me by one of my friends here, bookish friends, Brian, and he wanted to find out what I think about this book. And I am also kind of curious about what I would think about this book, because before he lent me this book, I actually went with him to the author's event. And basically that was where he got this, you know, his copy of this book signed. So yeah, there's actually a signature over here. And that is why I do not read this book in the toilet like I usually do with my own books, because I would prefer not to have any tragedy happening. So this is a historical fiction set in Malaya during the Japanese occupation. So that's sometime in the 40s. And what this book is about this woman who apparently has some kind of shady dealings with the Japanese during the British occupation of Malaya, and how this shady dealings of her affects her life in later years when the Japanese actually came to Malaya and basically brutalized the land. I would say, reading this one until about 1/3 of this book, I can't really say that I enjoy this book very immensely so far, because I think that the writing of this book is kind of bordering on sentimental. It doesn't shy away from writing about brutalities, especially during war, but at the same time there is also this air of sentimentality that feels kind of distracting also. I'm not really sure why. I'm not really big on this kind of sentimental stuff. I wouldn't say I'm a heartless person. But somehow it just doesn't really work on me. But anyway, what I plan is I'm still gonna try to finish this book, because there are certain aspects of this book which I think are interesting. I mean, the plot itself is interesting. I would say the writing of the characters is also fairly interesting. So I'm looking forward to actually finishing this book, because it was a Lent book, and honestly I'm very curious about what I would think about the entire book, so that I could share my thoughts. Like if I were to DNF a book, DNFing is something that I would do once in a while, but I noticed that the last book I actually DNF officially was actually last year. So I have not been really DNFing as much as I wanted to. But at the same time, when it comes to DNFing, obviously I would have thoughts about the book that I DNF, but at the same time, I also feel like the thoughts that I would have is also kind of half cooked, because I didn't really finish the entire book. So how can I be so sure of the thoughts about the book that I have, when I did not actually finish the book? Like, how can I be so sure that that book is going to be like that the whole, for the entirety of, the work? I don't know. So I usually don't feel confident in the thoughts that I have. Like, yes, I would share it, but I just don't really feel confident about it. As much as the books that I actually finished and end up disliking, then yeah, I can confidently say that I dislike the book. So, and also for today, I started a new book. Like, I have 7 books listed on my Goodreads currently reading. Actually, some of the other books, like I think three other books, are books that I'm kind of putting on hold first, because I want to be slow with those books. I'm gonna go through them slowly, one by one, eventually, hopefully before the year ends. But I also started a new book, which is a fairly short one. This is a translated fiction by a Finnish author, Arto Paasilinna. This is the Year of the Hare. I've not started reading a lot. I've only reached page 12 of 190, I think. 190 stuff, something. And this book is kind of interesting in the sense that it reminds me of how when you are at a different place and a different time, you know, when you're at a different age, your inclination or your the demands that you have on what you want to read would sort of change. Like I could sort of imagine that this is the kind of book that I would probably devour when I was a bit younger, like in my teens or something, or maybe in my early 20s. This book is about how this journalist who got ditched by his colleague when they hit a hare with their car, and when this journalist went to check on the hare, he got ditched. And I think, based on the description of this book, the journalist ends up having an adventure accompanied by that hare. So there's going to be something a little bit kind of whimsical in a realistic sense. It's not going to be like magical or something. And so there's going to be that kind of cute appeal to this book also, which I think is something that I might have more appreciative of when I was younger. And I find that these days, I'm not sure why, but I feel like I have less tolerance for things that are kind of cute or optimistic or bright. Am I turning bleak? Well, based on the kinds of stuff that I'm reading, my read list, probably. But I also want to get back to that kind of, you know, the happier time, happier version, I guess. It's not like I'm less happy nowadays. I feel like I'm happy nowadays. It's just that, you know, when it comes to the stuff I read, why am I reading all these really sad books? I want to read something happy as well. Something cute, yeah. So I'm interested in trying this one. And see how I will get along with it. So yeah. Anyway, that's all for this video. Let me know what you're currently reading, and yeah, I'll see you again in a different video. So until then, take care. Thanks for watching. Bye.